And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center deep in the heart of the city we love. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. Hey, give us a call at 401-205-3738. Yikes. Give us a call and let us know what you think. If you had a chance to listen to the Jesse Sage interview, it's up there already in some form, I believe. Let me check that out. But one of the things we're going to be trying to do is have guests on. Tomorrow night, we're going to have from an organization, Alexis from an organization called Swap Behind Bars. She's been on the show a few times. That's the Sex Worker Outreach Project. That's part of our effort here at the Coalition Radio After Dark. She'll be talking about what the impact on COVID is on sex workers around the country. And just sort of update us on that situation. There's a lot of folks in marginalized environments who find themselves in very difficult circumstances. She'll probably even give us an idea on how we can help those folks. Folks around the country are suffering. It's incumbent upon us that have a little to help those who may be finding themselves less fortunate than us right now. I know there's a lot of demands on people, charity everywhere, here, home, abroad. Most of us who are alive right now have never seen anything like this affect the entire planet simultaneously. I had, as I like to say to people, I had a conversation again tonight with my father. He's 97. Double Purple Heart winner, World War II, who saw literally the world in flames. And he saw it from a unique perspective. He was there. He fought through the entire Italian campaign. When I was young, we talked about going camping. And he mentioned to me once about visiting someone at a campsite, but we'd be staying at a motel. And I asked my father why we never went camping. And he turned to me and he said in one of those moments where you just kind of stood in awe and you just listened, you didn't say anything. We went camping once. He said, I went camping for 4 years. I started out in North Africa and I ended up in northern Italy with 2 unexpected side trips to Switzerland. Here's a man who's literally seen it all. In his lifetime, he went from literally manually placing bowling pins at a bowling alley. That was one of his first jobs, the height of the Depression, to where we are right now, where during the crisis, if you will, he can FaceTime with his granddaughters and even his little baby great-great-granddaughter from hundreds of miles away. Seeing the look on his face when he FaceTimed with his granddaughter, who was in France at the time, was remarkable. So that's the kind of world we live in right now, the kind of change folks like that have seen. Their question, of course, is, are we tough enough to ride this one out? Other situations where people in this country, we found ourselves at a disadvantage. Could we, in fact, fire back up? Get this mess rolling again. So if you have a moment, we'd love to, if you would, take the opportunity to call us at 401-205-3738. We're going to start, if you go to our Facebook page, we're going to jumpstart, if you will, or you can. I'm just scrolling down right now, scrolling. We have a little bit of difficulty with our connectivity to our coalitionradionetwork.com page. But yes, the interview is up. And we'll take a look at that. So if you've got a call, again, 401-205-3738. When you're starting out something like this from scratch, it's a challenge. When you're live on the radio, and I've found myself in this position before. When I was on AM 790 a few years back, I found myself on a Saturday night on a wonderful yet small signal radio station. And at the last minute, the guest, citing the Labor Day weekend, bailed on me. Now, at least if you have a guest here, you can have a conversation. You can even talk baseball scores. You can read the Constitution. When you're alone on the radio, you have no idea who's listening. There are folks expecting you to deliver a conversation that they may not want to take part in, they may want to listen to. And you sit there, and I spoke for an hour straight. minus a couple of commercials. Yikes. That was an experience. What do you say for an hour? Here in Rhode Island, the situation continues to get worse in terms of civil liberties. The governor is essentially shutting down the state. Folks like me who are adults obviously have mixed experiences about it, mixed feelings about it. On one level, you want people to be safe. On the other level, as my friend John Fennessy, who I often refer to in my verbal meanderings, said earlier today, let's see if I get this straight. I usually, because his stuff is spot on, I usually screw it up. But what do we find out in 3 weeks from now that we were supposed to have found out 3 weeks ago? Or something to that effect. Or that we were supposed to have found out about today. Now all of a sudden, we need to wear masks. So the nation is out there scrambling, getting masks. Despite the fact that 2 weeks ago, we are poo-pooing people who are taking time, entrepreneurs, to make masks. We've even got a candidate in Rhode Island who's actually distributing masks with his campaign logo on it. Holy cow, that attracted some attention. He's been on the show here. I like him a lot. But that seemed to have, as they say, struck a nerve. There are those associating that with opportunism. I won't do that. That's simply a new and alternative way of presenting a message. So if you have a feeling about that, give me a call at 401-205-3738. There's a lot of conversation about the, if you will, sports schedules. By the way, throughout the night, you'll see me alternate between Yacht Club and Dunkies. I'm a Rhode Island boy now. I know where my loyalties lie. Here's another question for you. The Pawtucket Red Sox, of course, had left us ignominiously at the altar. Quite frankly, given the fact that it was pay to play, I was happy to see him go. Holding us up again for tens of millions of dollars for a state that's, can you imagine if we had that? In fact, that's a good post. You want to tweet people? I'm just going to put that there on the Facebook. Imagine if we still had to pay for a stadium. Dodging that bullet has taken on a brand new relevance. Now in Worcester, where they're building Polar Park, my understanding is that they put that construction on hold. We've reached out to our contact in Worcester, and hopefully we're going to get him back on the show, a wonderful editor from the Worcester Business News, to get a snapshot of that, because as a wise philosopher once said, ruh-roh, because that means the Paw Sox got no place to play. What happens then? Yikes. Now, I'm hoping Grebs, as they say, as his buddies say, don't know if I qualify for being one of his buddies, will hold them up mercilessly. Or at least make some money off it. Understand that Paw Sox have been paying bupkis for rent for years. Sponging off the city, sponging off a broken state. Okay, they contributed to the quality of life. They donated money to charity. Okay, I'll give them that. When you start to ask for 80 or 100 million large, it stops being charity. It's called PR. So I'm hoping Grebs will draw the hard line there and negotiate, because the last time I remember, we had actually passed enabling legislation to sponsor a stadia. And they left us at the altar. I don't even think did they ever return his call? I think they sent him a letter. There's a rock song about that. And in doing so, I think left a foul, as they say, taste in many people's mouths. As if, I'm out of here. Of course, the deal, that we were handing them was terrible. I hope they take a deal almost as bad. No, they're going to Worcester, but where do they hang out next year? Do they rent a college stadium in Worcester? I don't know. Don't know how that works. Don't know how that works. Don't know how that flies. Again, 401-205-3738. I'm being distracted by inbound messages, incomings. If you tried to get to our website at coalitionradionetwork.com and couldn't see it, the show in its entirety, the interview with Ms. Sage, is on facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. She's funny. She's smart. It's great stuff. I hope she joins us regularly. A lot of insight into what's going on, in a part of the world that people are often afraid to discuss. And that, of course, is the purpose of Coalition Radio After Dark, to give people an opportunity to talk when they have talk about conversation. Someone just messaged me, keep plugging away. Listen, if anyone is out there listening and they're willing to do a mercy call, I'll talk just about anything tonight. 401-205-3738. Holy cow. It's, what do you say? I'm trying to change the habits, if you will, of Rhode Islanders. Yeah. The same Rhode Islanders who will watch and I love you all, but will blow off clearly superior news product on WPRI Channel 12. Clearly superior on every single level. And will watch kitty cats, chirp at birds or follow a car accident on JR because it's Channel 10. Well, meanwhile, next door at Channel 12, the three amigos are out there busting their nuts, uncovering all sorts of nonsense, literally doing journalistic backflips for your entertainment, and they're always the second left at the altar. At least, you got to admire Channel 6. They show up. I think they stopped trying. Nice people. But, it's, so here I am, Atlas, or Sisyphus, or whatever it was. The guy trudging up the hill. Trying to change people's approach to talk radio. By the way, a frozen coffee is wonderful for a sore throat. Not from the plague, but from the fact that I'm now talking 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day, plus stuff during the day. I give a lot of credit to folks at places like PRO who managed to deliver 3 hours of programming a day. Matty Allen, impressive stuff. He's focused like a laser on the issue. He's a polished professional. And now you got somebody to talk to at night. When after reading the prevarications, the machinations of the Rhode Island glitterati, the elite, the salons, if you will, of Halitosis Hall, all credit to Rudy Cheeks. Those folks, if they're keeping you up at night, you can call me. I am the shoulder that you can cry on. 401-205-3738. So whatever it is you want to talk about, what else is going on in Rhode Island today? We did have a number of people pass today because of the COVID. That won't be the last time that I do that. The tragedy here is that regardless of how you feel politically, steps could have been taken, not in so much of the governmental response, but the structure of our distribution channels, both medically. I call them the 3 horsemen of the apocalypse. Between certificate of needs, between the FDA and their methodical approach to approving drugs, and to, shall we say, licensing issues at every state level, which prevent the easy transport, if you will, of medical professionals from one environment to the other. All of that contributed to this. The notion that so many of those are going away so quickly. Here's somebody who didn't like the subject matter of our show. Disgusting / hashtag toxic feminism. Oh, well. Deal. Absolutely deal. Or as we like to say, get over it. Looking at the rest of the Facebook site. I can see the term misogynist comes to mind. Yikes. Oh, well. Not everyone's going to agree. Not everyone is going to see the world through the same prism that I do. And I'm okay with that. It'd be nice to talk about it, though, rather than hurl epithets at each other, as they say. So there you go. We played the epithets card tonight. Over on a Facebook page, Citizens in Rage, young activist Sean Gannon posts alarming statistics about Pawtucket's response to the corona crisis. Good man. He is uniquely on top of what is going on in the bucket, as we say, if you're a native of New England and you know about Pawtucket, Rhode Island. He and I have gotten to know each other, if you will, through the two stadium battles, particularly the last one. Incredibly enough, now in a city like Pawtucket, Rhode Island, which is broke, one citizen here refers to it as a petri dish of poor decisions. They've decided that they're going to subsidize a soccer stadium because no one wanted the baseball stadium. So they picked an even smaller sport. But they structured it, cynically enough, so that they only have to go through the state's Economic Development Commission. They do not have to go to the citizenry, which means they can do it on their own without citizen input. Except you'll hear us use the term exogenous events. It would appear that exogenous events may have gotten in the way again. It's tragic that Pawtucket keeps looking for the silver bullet, if you will. That one home run. That one easy way of bringing in money, giving away money to developers for some Pollyannish vision that's going to save the day, except that it won't. They never do. The hard work of economic development has to take place in the dreaded private sector in a combination of joint efforts, both organically and in partnership with each other. Finding ways to improve the operation of the free market so as to attract an additional tax base to a city like Pawtucket and Providence, for that matter, without the flawed interventions of government, which simply screw it up every single time. I was opposed to the use of taxpayer dollars for a baseball stadium. And at one hearing, I was heard to give forth on a number of failed situations, and someone asked me how I knew so much about it. How I knew so much about failed baseball stadiums and broken public partnerships. And I said, all I said was I Googled failed baseball stadiums. Do it. Sports facilities do not in and of themselves constitute economic development when in fact the risk capital for them is generated by the government, hence by the people, at the risk of the people, so that you are essentially socializing failure and risk, and you are privatizing profit. Simply doesn't work. I'm sure it works for the people for whom you're privatizing profit. The folks of the new ownership, they're relatively new at this point, it's been a couple of years, ownership of formerly your Pawtucket Red Sox, now the Woo Sox in Worcester, who had to, by the way, find an additional $33 million a couple months ago. Boy, is that timing looking good. How's that working out for you, Sparky? You just invested $33 million of your municipal money from whatever source they're getting it from literally at the height of the business apocalypse. And you're on the hook for it. Except who's going to pay for it? The thriving retail sector of Worcester, Massachusetts? I think not. Because right now, as it stands in the United States, there is no thriving retail anywhere unless you're Amazon or a handful of great local restaurants here in Rhode Island. That's the retail sector right now. Macy's, the most venerable of department stores, has closed everything. They are boarding stores in the Fifth Avenue in New York City. Boarding the windows because they're afraid of break-ins. B&Es, if you will, breaking and enterings are up in some neighborhoods 75%, and most of that is attributable to retail. So imagine having just dropped $33 million for a mid-sized New England city into a space that may never be built. And they'd probably prefer that it not be built because maybe they can recoup some of their damn money, because ultimately, if it's built and there's no retail, who the hell is going to support it? Don't you remember the words ancillary development? I do. Pepperidge Farm remembers. So if you'd like to give a call in to 401-205-3738. If any of the folks at PRO probably caught word of me doing this, probably going, he thought this would be easy. No, we recognize it's not. We recognize it's not. We're trying to single-handedly change here the direction of media in Rhode Island. How's that for biting off a little more than you can chew? How about that? How was about that? So, yeah, as bad of a day as you're having, as bad as the day as you're having, it could be worse. It could be worse. So, putting out a little word on Facebook. See, real radio stations have a publicity department that do this. The host doesn't do it on the air. So, you'll excuse me for the occasional lapses in conversation here while I type. I ain't that smart. A project in the New Jersey public school systems. There you go. There was a movie years ago about the nuclear winter that was going to take place once we launched our IBMs. Don't even ask. If you don't know what they are, don't even ask, please. The movie ends. This is Lawrence, Kansas. Is there anybody out there? This is Providence, Rhode Island. Is there anybody out there? So lots of stuff happening. Lots of stuff happening. A big shout out to Jesse Sage, who joined us tonight. We had a little technical difficulties there. One of the challenges here, of course, is getting people connected video. Bandwidth issues are everywhere. A lot of folks aren't used to running the software we do or any one of a number of packages that are out there. But she was a great sport and a wonderful guest. Someone who is clearly living her dream despite all the challenges. In fact, really stopping at nothing through pure hard work. We hope to have her on again tomorrow night. Alex from Swap Behind Bars, Sex Worker Outreach Project. She'll be on at 9 o'clock to talk for an hour, and of course you can call in after that as well. We're also working on having call-ins while the guest is online to talk about the impact of COVID on sex workers everywhere. Oh my. There are a lot of folks in a lot of marginalized communities that, frankly, have nowhere to turn right now. Rent checks are coming due. There's been some wonderful stories of some folks who are in the real estate business who are looking past this month's rent bill. But here's the fundamental challenge. A lot of folks who own rental properties are not the multimillionaires, not Snidely Whiplash, waiting for the mortgage payment while the heroin is tied to the railroad tracks. Nope. A lot of these folks are small business people in and of themselves. Very often in immigrant communities, one of the first steps up the economic ladder in the United States is restaurants and property. A lot of sweat equity goes into both. And both industries have found themselves on the chopping block because if they defer their rent collection permanently, how are they to pay the hideous property taxes here in Providence? How are they to keep the lights on? In fact, if utilities were included. How are they to pay their mortgages? These attempts to paint with a broad brush and display landlords as evil simply is not reality. It's not. For every bankster who went out and bought 4 or 5 properties and are acting as slumlords, according to every cliche in the book, there are a whole lot of landlords out there who use the rent maybe to pay for their mortgage. They might literally live upstairs or next door so they can have a buy-in into the American dream. The problem is at some point, somewhere, somebody has to pay the bill. And no easy answers here. We don't demonize people in the coalition. Well, we do a few. Gina, we demonize her. Sometimes grotesquely unfairly, but you'll never get me to admit that in public. Remember, always, despite everyone's, let's just say there's a number of people in the media who are confusing some type of connectivity, some type of communication with Gina, and they are just stumbling over themselves to all of a sudden praise her in exchange. Let me say, as somebody who used to work with us here used to refer to, if you, when it comes to relationships with professional politicians like Gina Raimondo, if you're how did he put it? It was a great way of saying, if you aren't adversarial, you're advertising. Something to that effect. Where you are being nothing more than a mouthpiece for her. People are talking about how much more accessible she is. Wait a minute, Sparky. She's in a room with more than 5 people, I might add, reading cards of pre-selected questions without the ability to ask back follow-up questions. Now, listen, if teachers that I know can Zoom into a class of 15 noodly kooky tots in second and third grade and get them to pay attention all day, somehow I got to believe that we should be having a press that demands demands, if not a face-to-face interaction, then a digital one where they can ask follow-up questions. But then again, if you're Ian Donis, that means Gina Raimondo won't send you a birthday card. Do you realize that we've got members of the media for whom the governor sends birthday wishes? Listen, there are a few things in life I can guarantee. One of them is I ain't ever going to get a birthday card from Gina. Guaranteed. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage-porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network here at the local live broadcast. Well, no, we're not there anymore. Keep saying that. That's not an insult to them. Wonderful people. We're here at the Coalition Radio Network headquarters in the bunker, buried deep, deep, deep in the bowels of Providence, Rhode Island, the city of dreams, La Prov. It's our city. You can make fun of our Providence. No, you can. We can. You can. Love Providence. Find yourself in a tragic situation right now, but I love Providence. After I morph from a frozen coffee, there is a Yacht Club Diet Root Beer waiting for me. Ooh. Jealous? You should be. I got to talk to Jesse Sage tonight. And I got a Yacht Club soda waiting for me. Woohoo! Yacht Club is the finest soda on the planet. It was a boutique soda before Rhode Island even knew it needed a boutique soda. Crystal clear water, natural flavors. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. It tastes like soda should. A sparkling, bubbly confection that real flavors scream through at you. I never had a Yacht Up. You know what that's a take up on, don't you? I had never had a Yacht Up until a couple of days ago. Damn, that was good. That's refreshment. I know you guys are all beer drinkers. I'll always have a Yacht Club root beer before I'll have a beer. I just will. Or a cream soda, or a sarsaparilla, or a Yacht Up, or a Rhode Island Red, or their cola, or their ginger ales. If you love ginger ale, it beats the pants off of other people's ginger ales. They actually use, you ready for this? In the soda, in the formulation, there is actually a physical presence of ginger. Oh, my God. Good stuff. So let's see if anybody's out there. Is there anybody out there? Have you seen the movie Young Frankenstein? Then you'll understand the term, the rantings of a lunatic madman. Yep. That's what I get to be on nights like this, as we try to single-handedly, on our own, go head-to-head with literally a multi-billion-dollar radio affiliate. Multi-billion. And all we got is a microphone and a guy with a lot of talk in him. That's what we got to go up against them. That's what we got. That's all I got. All I got is a microphone and an opinion. And a couple of thousand followers. And a late night signal. No, we're not going to drop outrage porn free from the title. Yes, I understand it was ICBM, not IBM. Thanks. And I'm up against the 10 Commandments. I didn't know that, man. I'm screwed. If I'm trying to broadcast against the 10 Commandments, I got no choice. I got no chance. Mm-mm. I got no chance whatsoever. This is interesting. This is actually the one chance I get to read all the Facebook screens. So, 401-205-3738. We're starting from scratch this week, a talk radio station. I'm messaging someone else. Coalition Radio at www.coalitionradionetwork.com. 401-205-3738. If you're out there, give me a call. Give a guy a break. You don't need the imprimatur of WPRO, do you? Or what are those stations in La Prab? You're not saying that, do you? It's a Saturday night. Everyone's at home. Are people really in bed? I find that difficult to believe. Difficult. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage, porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network here, at the coalitionradionetwork.com, or I should say coalitionnetworkradio.com. Coalition Radio Network. Let's see how I get that right. Oh, we do have a caller.
Hello.
Hi, you reached the Coalition After Dark at coalitionradionetwork.com. Essentially, Rhode Island's first brand new talk radio station in, well, forever. And your name, sir? And who's calling in? Yeah, who's calling in? Is this Alex from Woonsocket?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's this?
This is Matthew Ritchie.
Oh, hey. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How's it going?
Good, good, good. So it's you and me alone on the air. Actually, there's a couple of people listening. Trying to get them to call is a whole nother adventure in and of itself. So this is what I've been. Matt and I work together. We won't say where. We got to keep that quiet. It's on the down low, on the QT. But or at least we did work together. We still kind of do, I think, until Corona struck us down. So I started this. We've been on the air doing the show for a couple of years, but I started this whole talk radio thing for the first new talk radio station, if you will, in Providence in years. So what do you think?
Well, I've been watching your show a few times, and as you know, I'm a Trump supporter.
Oh,
but sorry about that. But I thought your show was very interesting, and I thought I would. It was late at night, and I figured you could maybe use a call or two. So here I am.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, I'm all for a mercy call. We call it. That's when you've been on the air, when you've been on the air for a while, and we're starting completely from scratch. We have no advertising budget whatsoever. What we're hoping for is just we have guests on. Now, did you listen to tonight's guest, Jesse Sage?
I know. I actually missed it. I've caught the last about 20 minutes.
Okay. She wonderful woman, interesting background, interesting career. It really got a little bit of an in-depth look at the online sex world tonight. Not the kind of conversation you're going to get on WPRO or WBZ. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
What we're hoping is that people will hang on after the show and hang on a second. I'm just going to tell someone, hang on. We actually have two callers right now. Holy cow. This is Coalition Radio history. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I've always wanted to do this, but after you sitting next to me for about 4 months, you knew that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So buddy, how are you doing with this? How are you guys hanging in?
Well, actually good. Actually, as I was laid off.
Right.
And the unemployment actually went through the fastest I've ever seen in history. It only took actually from the date, from when I signed up to when I received a check was 8 days.
Wow.
So that was actually very impressive. And it wasn't very painful to do. So for the people out there who are having to go through that process, it was actually not bad. So,
but you're dealing with Massachusetts, right?
Correct, not Rhode Island.
Right. I think.
Thankfully.
Yeah. No, I think there's a big difference there. And listen, I'm not here to take shots at people in Rhode Island. I just don't. I think the ordinary folks who work for the state are good, seriously good people. I think it's just the people they work for are a mess. They're just their priorities are screwed. They're really not interested in. Well, there's no accountability until now. Now all of a sudden there's huge accountability. I mean, and look at it. I mean, look what happened with the Patriots with their plane. The governor of the governor of the state of Massachusetts on his own he almost creates an international incident, but he brings home 3 million masks?
Yeah, something I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, wow! Talk about an alternate reality.
Yeah.
So how are you doing with all this time spent at home?
I'm actually I could use a vacation.
Vacation from the vacation?
Yes, because after my job, I was averaging between 55 and 58 hours a week.
Right.
And this is actually a very welcome vacation to me. So I'm actually enjoying it. And I think a lot of people could actually use a couple weeks off. I'm not sure about a couple months.
Right.
but I think a couple weeks is healthy for people, but I'm not sure about a couple months. As time goes on, I'm sure it'll be a little bit more of a stressful situation for everybody, but in the short term, it seems to be okay.
Folks, you're listening to Matt from Rhode Island, who I know personally to be one of the hardest working men alive. This is probably the only thing that could stop you and slow you down, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So it's,
well, you
could stop everybody in their tracks.
You could go out and start a radio station a week before an international pandemic.
Yeah,
timing is everything.
No. Yeah, well, I'll leave that to the professionals like you.
Now, okay, you can be honest because you always have been brutally honest.
Yeah.
How is the sound? How is the overall quality of the presentation from your experience watching other radio shows or listening to other radio shows?
It seemed to be very good.
All right, cool.
So, yeah, very good, very clear, and seemed to be no issues that I could say, no.
Right. No, listen, I appreciate that. I hope you watch some of the programming. Listen, you and I politically were similar. We've chosen slightly different paths. I'll just put it out that way. Yours is based on sound reasoning, and it's your opinion, and you're certainly entitled to it. And, like I said, I sincerely mean this. You're probably one of the 2 or 3 hardest working people I've ever met. You're a great guy to work with. You're very considerate of other people's feelings. You're a consummate team player in a time when there are very few people who are team players. And
thank you.
No, I wouldn't say it wasn't true. People are very self-centered these days, and it's a privilege to work with someone like you. And I think you and I will be back together sometime soon. I've kind of stayed in touch a little bit, and with the office, and they seem to be kind of hanging in there. A lot of credit to the people we work with. I think they kept us on as long as they could until they legally couldn't. It just became. I think it just became an issue of, have to comply with the governor's order in Massachusetts. So but I hope you'll stay with the programming, and we'll have a lot of interesting guests tomorrow night. I've got a woman coming on who runs a charity for folks who are just coming out of prison or coming out of prison to help people with their with the challenges that they face. And so we're going to try and get to as many people as we can. So thanks for calling in. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very good, and hopefully I'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, no, listen all the time. Call in all the time because I need. It's funny when you're out here. You could tell me. You could tell I'm just at some point I'm drowning.
That's a little bit of the reason why I called.
There you go again, being honest. But I mean that's I'm completely I'm a lunatic for trying to do this. I'm competing against essentially, and they're good, and I don't know these people; they're friends. But I'm competing against. This would be like me building a car and trying to set up next to a Ford dealership. That's essentially what I'm doing here. So I'm just relying on everybody, good faith and goodwill to just give a guy a chance and call up and have some fun. And
you can think that the one with the goodwill was actually a Trump supporter. Hey, that's pretty good.
Holding on the line, though, I have a straight Bernie-crat. So that's okay. So keep listening, and thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right, and good luck, and I'll be talking to you.
Yeah, call in again, okay?
Okay, bye-bye.
Hi.
Hey, Pat. How are you?
Good. Is this Alex from Woonsocket?
Yes, it is.
Joining me on the line right now is Alice Kithis. He is the newly minted or somewhat freshly minted councilman from the great city of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Where facing the same kind of, this is the astonishing part about this event that we're all dealing with is that it's universal. There is, at this place, no one across the planet literally untouched by this. It even hit Little Rhodey. So Alex has joined us on the show on a number of occasions. to talk about his blog, and then when he was running for office. And I know that well, first let me explain, Alex, since you and I haven't had a chance to talk because of all the chaos the last couple of weeks. The coalition has moved to its own programming facility here in the deepest parts of Providence, hidden in the bunker. In addition to the 3-hour traditional Friday show, we're going to be gradually adding on more and more programming, as well as an after-hours kind of talk radio environment where people like yourself, regular folks, can call in. We are out to compete against the other talk radio show stations in the state. I mean, nothing less. We realize that's a kind of a tall order when you're talking about PRO, and I know that you've got a bounty, nature's bounty of fine talk radio operations there in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, don't you?
we do, yes. Yeah. I trust that your show is probably a lot higher quality than WNRI.
I didn't say a word.
I did.
The scene of one of them broadcasting what literally appeared to be their bedroom, I found no shortage of humor in that. When the radio sign kept falling over, and his daughter's toys were there, so I don't know. You can't tell what we're in right now. All you see is like brick, probably. But no, we're out. Listen, those are 7 by 24 operations. I hope that's the dream to get there, right? But I'm looking to elevate the conversation in the state. State faces a lot of challenges. I know that you and I have always gotten along famously, even though we have some philosophical differences. But there's a tremendous amount of mutual respect, I would hope. I have a great deal of respect for what you've done, running against the establishment, if you will, in a very challenged city with after a prolonged period of activism. I mean, that's what America's built on, and it's built on different opinions. You've comported yourself very well against difficult circumstances by people who are venal, mean-spirited, self-absorbed, narcissistic, and contemptuous of the folks that they are elected to support. Did that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah. It does. And honestly, like what I'm very quickly realizing is that trumping all of that is bad faith. And I think that's something I discovered today. I'm not sure if you saw my post earlier, but I submitted a bunch of things for our city to try to be dealing with the COVID-19 crisis for next week's meeting, and they got removed. I'm not sure exactly by who, some combination of our city solicitor and council president, because they were deemed non-essential. Now, I mean, if you ask me, changing the rates at a compost facility is much less essential than making sure homeless people don't die because they can't self-quarantine. But, I mean, I guess it depends who you ask, so I'm currently in the process of dealing with that right now. I'm trying to figure out a way to pressure my own city council to just let the things I'm proposing get onto the agenda. And that is the fact that even that is not approached in good faith is really concerning to me, but yeah.
So let's go step by step. What were your suggestions, and what because the homeless situation has always been dire. In a situation like this where, as we like to say at the coalition, exogenous events take over the news cycle, those folks who are marginalized the most are quickly forgotten. In fact, tomorrow night we have on Alex from an organization called Swap Behind Bars, which is the sex worker outreach project. Their prison related association. This is an organization that all the time is supporting incarcerated sex workers through everything from correspondence, books, some financial support, and then also acting as a resource so that they get what they need, and someone to literally be available to help at some level. And they're privately financed. This is not one of these big day one type operations. They're privately funded to support people who are just out of prison. And whereas, you have this huge problem with recidivism, now looking at Corona, you've got people walking out of prison onto this. Well, first of all, they're in prison. They're surrounded by the disease. There appears to have been no thought whatsoever within significant parts of the prison industrial complex in this country to have accounted for mass illness. And we're talking about, for some people, literally a death sentence. They were incarcerated probably, and very often, not always, but very often, for a meaningless, what should be a civil infraction or not an infraction at all, possibly drug related.
Yeah.
And it's literally turning into a death sentence to them. So the pipeline to prison.
And that's a huge problem with them.
Right. And we see it in what's happening, in anecdotal reports coming out of Central Falls, and we see it in anecdotal reports coming out of Cranston, with the state facility there. So now, flash forward to a city like Woonsocket, which is economically challenged, and I'm not here, I'm not here to disparage people, but it's just it's a frank reality. There are a lot of folks who don't have a lot, and they're in Woonsocket, and you and I know from their experiences and that it's awfully expensive in Rhode Island to be poor. There's a lot. It's brutal. So you've got these folks who probably have compromised medical situations to begin with for no other reason than they've spent the last 4 months, going in and out of a variety of facilities, exposed to the elements, possibly having some type of addiction issue, some type of medical issue, some type of other issue that may have, let's just say, exacerbated their situation being homeless. And now we're looking at an international pandemic. So we're supposed to just ignore that? I'm thinking that's not good for anybody. So what were your ideas? Because this is good stuff.
So the two things that I submitted specifically for this week were, one, to stop any form of enforcement of the sort of the vagrancy and loitering type laws, those laws that are generally used to criminalize homelessness. Mm-hmm. So my suggestion was a temporary amendment in our ordinances that would just cease all enforcement against anybody who was homeless, claimed to be homeless, so there was a reasonable belief. So that kind of picks on both of these problems where you don't want to be enforcing what's honestly unnecessary laws against people who are already so vulnerable to this pandemic, but you also don't want to be putting them in prison where you're just you're putting them into a very dangerous situation and increasing the problem of the prisoners being a dangerous situation because of how dense they are. So that was one thing. And the second was directing the police force to stop any sort of disruption of tent encampments, because that is a thing that has happened recently. And I think that, there was a further suggestion that I was going to be drafting, but it needed some more time to figure out, was giving a grant to some of the sort of mutual aid groups in the community that are like the nonprofits and some of the groups that are doing really good work to making sure that people who are housing and income insecure right now get their basic needs met. So I think that, for a very small sum relative to our city's budget and relative to what we have, the little discretionary wiggle room we have, I think that, we could give a few $1,000 grant to a couple of different organizations doing that work, and in it, not only for people experiencing homelessness, but people just who are experiencing income insecurity or whatever, just making sure they can get access to food and hygiene products and things. So that was not submitted for this week, but the other two were. So they were among the things that just got wiped by our city solicitor or council president. A couple of the other things that I had submitted, one was to expand the governor's allowance for takeout beer and wine sales, like in sealed container beer and wine sales, to expand that to hard liquors as well, because I think that that could be a good revenue stream for some of the struggling restaurants right now. Right. I'm kind of surprised she didn't include that, but another thing, to enable and mandate all city employees to socially distance, which is something that has been sort of worked out in different groups within all of the city employees, but it's just something that we want to make sure everybody is able to do and knows that they should be doing while at work. There was a resolution directing the mayor to immediately come up with a plan to give every city employee an emergency bucket of sick time to be able to use in relation with this virus, because there are some people who may not have sick time, or who don't have adequate sick time, or part-time workers who are working right now and don't have any benefits. And so just kind of granting that to make sure that, if they need to quarantine, if they think they have the virus, or if a family member gets it, they can kind of, quickly shift to that sort of caretaker or self-quarantine mode.
Right.
What else? What am I missing? Oh yeah. So there was the other proposal was to delay the property tax deadline, which is April 15th, to June 1st, I believe. And that is something that had kind of simultaneously been proposed by the administration. So that got in. But I wanted to add to that to allow a waiver of late fees and interest payments conditioned on not initiating or performing an eviction during the span of the state of emergency. And I think that's, we're not in the business of, the municipalities in the state literally don't have any control over evictions, but we can certainly control late fee waivers and things like that. And I think we want to encourage people to be kept in their homes and not made homeless during the course of this crisis.
So what you were saying to landlords, and if I can jump in, is that we'll give you a break on late fees and waivers if you not put people out on the street in the middle of a pandemic. That seems pretty.
Yes, exactly.
That seems pretty fair.
Yeah.
I'm missing the complexities here, Alex. I mean, what's this? All this sounds pretty straightforward. This is, I applaud you because this is what I'll call municipal 101, and that's what say, all right, you're looking at issues as a disproportionately impact a community that is challenged to begin with. I mean, so much of employment in Woonsocket relies on retail employment. Retail employment effectively ceased to exist about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
I mean, just ended. Dude, I'm unemployed. It happens to it's happening. It's not something I'm happy about, but I'm not going to be ashamed of it either. It's happening at every level of the economy. And for those folks, and this is what's interesting to me, and I'm going to, I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm just pondering this on the fly. So the very folks who have been working, which may have cost them transfer payments or put them in, income ineligible for certain things, who were, according to the approach of certain media in Woonsocket, the people who are doing what you asked through no fault of their own suddenly find themselves literally unemployed. And if you're trying to find common sense ways that cost your municipality little, but at the same time can try in very precise ways to make things a little easier, they're going to play games with. Is that pretty much the situation?
Unfortunately, yeah. And I honestly, I've gotten used to the proposition where I would propose something bold or even something not bold and expect that certain members of the city council will use it as an opportunity to grandstand against, this dumb progressive kid, quote unquote. I got used to that and I kept proposing things because, we need to be proposing things and moving the needle. But I didn't expect to just be completely to just for the process to be violated to such an extent that I'm just not even able to propose things that I proposed in the middle of a global pandemic are deemed non-essential city business. I did not expect that to happen. And that good play on them, but also really morally bad. Because it's not being done in good faith as far as I'm concerned.
No,
and that's really unfortunate because we were all elected to do the same thing, to serve the same constituency.
No, they've established a narrative, and they're going to maintain it, come hell or high water, regardless of the circumstances. Here's to me the real issue. They have the right as elected officials to agree or disagree with you. What I don't believe they have the responsibility, however, I'll put it this way, to give you as another elected official the opportunity to present your ideas. Now they may vote them down. Absolutely right. All right. But they certainly, everything you've told me about since you've gotten elected certainly was worth the time invested to hear them out, have a conversation, professionally and at a mature level address them. You know, there may be things that you propose as someone who's a progressive that folks who are conservative may disagree with. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair, however, to continue to marginalize your efforts. It's not fair to effectively, for lack of a better term, shut off your mic. It's not fair for them to use parlor games and administrative tricks and parliamentary foolishness to keep your ideas from the light of day. That's morally wrong. And
I completely agree.
It needs to stop, because Woonsocket, even before this, was in no position. And again, this is not me attacking the town or the townspeople, but I think we're all adults, and we can assess that there are communities in the state that are facing, before COVID-19, terrible economic challenges that will take a generation to fix. So the time for these people to sit on their thrones and dismiss anybody, because let's be really blunt, regardless of you're a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, a Green, a Progressive, an Independent, or even regardless if you don't give a damn, these people were in charge when this crap happened. These are the same folks who brought Woonsocket to the point where it's at today. And if they don't like that, then tough. By the way, for the record, this is internet media. So tough shit. Right? You guys, they set the table. You know, some of these people have been around since the banking crisis. Some of these people were part of the banking crisis. So stop it. Grow the F up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now,
I mean, preaching to the choir.
I just, and again, as you and I, it's funny. It's great that we become friends and that we can chat and everything. Philosophically, on some political issues, you and I are worlds apart. But that doesn't mean we have the right to disrespect each other as respective leaders within their communities. And in fact, we should be looking for some goddamn common ground.
Yeah, it certainly does seem like we have it. I mean, in terms of like some of the in the weeds economic justice and prison justice and stuff. I mean, I think
because we're human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, who the hell could look at someone who's incarcerated now, particularly for a civil offense, as so many of our fellow brother and sister Rhode Islanders are, for drug offenses that in most states aren't even offenses anymore? How could you've got a situation in the New Bedford jail where you've got people who are incarcerated for civil disobedience? Mm-hmm. Are you effing kidding me? And you're going to
that's ridiculous. You're
going to subject these people to real long-term harm because they had the balls to stand up to you? And the only reason, quite frankly, they're getting away with some of this crap is because they're all hiding behind this 6 feet stuff because of the crisis. I would contend to you that there are civic leaders in this state right now, and I'll name them, who are using the crisis as a way to create an arm's length, to create a distance between them and the electorate. And it sounds like your city council is doing it. I would argue that the governor in certain cases is doing it by holding the type of press conferences he is. Dude, I went to a Board of Election meeting 2 weeks ago. There were 10 of us there. There was enough space that we all sat 10, 15, 20 feet apart. We all got up and asked questions. No one got hurt. The media should be able to address the governor and city councils, and everyone will be okay. We can observe everything we need to do in a responsible manner and still force these people to be on the record, and they're hiding behind it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I mean, and this is, so, like, obviously we've been dealing with the problem for the last few weeks that the General Assembly is refusing to meet. And I think, I don't think anybody could reasonably make a good argument in good faith that we don't need our legislative leaders right now. They should be meeting remotely. And, I've poked that hornet's nest a little bit, and I'm definitely, supporting Sam and some others Sam Bell and some others who are calling for them to meet. But I was happy that our city council had decided to have virtual meetings, and we had our first one early. I think it was earlier this week, if I remember right. So I was like, okay, great. We'll be able to at least talk about and possibly do some stuff. And then this happened, and like it's basically the same thing in a different flavor of the same sort of, how would I put this? Like having some sort of plausible deniability for any of our actual responsibilities as elected officials. And that's so disheartening.
Well, and on a practical level, let's put aside for a moment the philosophical issues that this crisis brings up. Let's put aside for just a moment the human implications of what this crisis brings up. The state of Rhode Island, on a number of different levels, is facing a budget apocalypse right now. Mm-hmm. The legislature is, as is on the federal level, given the authority and the responsibility to deal with budgetary issues.
Yep.
We've eliminated the third largest source of revenue in the state, gaming. Sales tax collections have got to be through the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Gas tax receipts, because of the continually lowering price of gasoline, are disappearing. Someone remarked today in one of those great quiet observations, there ain't even anybody out in the street to get caught by the speed cameras in the hood. So, so you've got this budget apocalypse which is happening. Now, the state so far has not been held to any accountability. I mean, I listen, as someone who just got laid off, I know exactly how folks feel. And I'm not advocating for anyone to lose their job per se. But the state has got to be facing budget reality and the fact that they are certainly not bringing in the revenues to compensate. And you know what? I'm not talking about the guy who's making $15 an hour at Zambrano or at doing this or doing that for the state, or the guy who's working out out for the DOT. I'm talking about the endless series of $150,000 jobs that Gina has appointed for what no one really knows, the phalanx of a PR army for what no one knows. And Alex, this doesn't even take into account the devastation that that has to have taken place in the states and the city's pension systems. We are greeted with a relentless series of statistics regarding corona, and yet curiously there has been little or no conversation about its impact on the funding levels of both Providence and Warwick and the state of Rhode Island pension systems. So why or how or what the reasonings are that a activist speaker like Nicholas Mattiello has decided to refrain from having public conversation is thoroughly, it's beside me. I have no idea why he wouldn't be asserting himself in this situation.
I have a hypothesis. I think that at this moment in time, the types of legislative solutions that are popular are not legislative solutions that Nicholas Mattiello, as I don't know what you'd call his political ideology, but certainly not a progressive. He would not want to even entertain the types of legislative sort of solutions to dig us out of this that might be required, whether that's borrowing money or repealing the tax cuts for the wealthiest. And so he would rather let people die than convene the General Assembly and be forced to reckon with, quite a number of General Assembly members who've probably gotten calls from working class and poor constituents who need the General Assembly to help dig them out of this.
Right.
And that's despicable. And, just speaks again to the need for a complete reform to the rules that, give him and President Ruggiero so much power. Because it should be the case that they shouldn't have the power to prevent the reconvening of the General Assembly, but it seems like they do. Mm-hmm. I don't even know. I don't even know what rules we're being governed by at this point, as a state. But
no, and yeah. For a guy who is seemingly injecting himself into every aspect of public life, I'm talking about Speaker Mattiello, into education, into everything. Why this sudden reticence? Why this drawback? Listen, I don't know what the answers are, but the conversation should be had. I don't know if there's a fear that this will expose the incredible wasteful spending. I mean, Alex, we have just abruptly ended an 11-year economic boom. That a level of prosperity, I'm not a big fan of judging the economy by the stock market. I think that's a terrible way to do it. But gross domestic product, income levels in certain communities were eclipsed by just incredible wasteful spending. Again, look at the multi-million dollar budget to run our General Assembly, and yet where are they? I have words fail me. You know me well enough to know that doesn't happen very often, does it? So let me ask you a question on a lighter note. I can't even tell right now if anyone's listening to us, but we have this on tape, and if you don't mind, I'll share this with folks. What are your thoughts about, just generally, as someone now who's been in public life for a little while, having an alternative to radio stations in Little Rhodey, that there's a little voice struggling to stand up amongst the big boys? What are your thoughts on my whole prospects here? You can be blunt.
No, I think it's awesome. I mean, I it's much more the whole citizens radio thing than, and I think that I say that in a very complimentary way. I think my opinions on the way that talk radio tends to sort of tends to happen, at least maybe in this state, or maybe just one of the two stations in Woonsocket. I don't listen to WPRO very much, so I don't know. But I think it's excellent. I'm somebody who talks a lot about access and the importance of as many people as lowering the barriers for people to have access to political dialogue and to politicians and to to all of this. And so the idea that you don't have to set up a brick and mortar radio station and are able to take things online is great.
Well, what we've done here now is we've got a video studio, so we're going to have you in a sort of a pre-publicized, well-defined event that you can be brought in remotely via the miracle of IP addresses on video. We can have a conversation more in depth about all the issues. We can share it via social media in a variety of prospects immediately across the state. My mantra has always been that I'm outrage porn-free media. And what I mean by outrage porn-free is I'm not interested in the type of Springsteen had a song, I always forget how many stations and there's nothing on. I'm not interested in raising people's emotions to obscure the presence of legitimate issues or issues that need to be discussed. I'm not interested in, the example I always use, and it's a bad one, is some kid shows up at school wearing a heavy metal T-shirt and the teacher sends him home. All right, there's a conversation to be had about that, about civil liberties and freedom of speech, but it shouldn't take up an entire day. I'm not interested in having a conversation again about the moral relativism of Trump versus Clinton. I'm just not. That isn't going to change anybody's lives. I'm just tired of that. I'm tired of one group using the other as a scapegoat for their own bad behavior. So what I want to focus on in this program, and here's the thing, it's me, I own it. It's not some out-of-state guy who's setting the rules and using consultants. It's a couple of people, putting in free time to publicize issues. And I want to talk about issues. When we first met, one of the first things I said to you, and I mean it to our core, this is our mission here, I'm not interested in handicapping elections. When you were running for office, the general consensus in many quarters is that you didn't have a prayer in hell. Not a prayer in hell. and I said to you, I'm not interested in knowing if you're going to win. I want to know why you should. Pretty simple concept.
Oh, yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Pretty simple concept, isn't it? Let's listen to you for the quality of your ideas, your perspective, your background, who you are. And then, when the handicapping should take place? About 10 minutes after the polls close. I'm not interested in your fundraising. I'm not. I have no doubt that the people that you were running against had more money to run against you. All right. I'm not interested in any of that. It means nothing. And why conventional media just obsesses over that crap, and it is crap. It just baffles me. And I know the reason, because it's harder work to sit and talk about issues, because you have to have an understanding of the fundamentals of the issues. You have to have some fundamental basis in which to question people. And that's work. You know, so many of these people effing mail it in. They read the Providence Journal. They go to Go Local Prov. They read the headlines from people who've done some work. And then they use that as their basis to run a talk radio show. Screw that. People deserve better.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, sorry for my rambling there, but that's the basis.
No, I agree.
You know, it's as the TV shows, it's pretty simple. And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to run a lot of after hours programming, because, people, ultimately I'll probably have to go back to work at some point. If we can turn this into a full-time effort, I mean, we like all media is relying on sponsors and donations, and the squeeze happens because, you've got a handful of independent media players in this state. You've got Steve Alquist, who does yeoman's work. Tremendous amount of respect for him, again, despite the fact that we're, different perspectives on different things. Tony Jones, people like that, even on a bigger scale, Go Local. These are folks who literally every day get up and go to work to try and figure out how to report the news.
Yeah.
And then you got the rest of the crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope you'll grace us with your phone calls all the time. If you could, spread the word to folks that there's, when the little light goes on at coalitionradionetwork.com, you'll see the phone number. Call in and bitch about whatever you want. Number one, we'll never hang up on you. Unless you say naughty words, we'll never hang up on you, as long as you're rational. Number two, we're never going to condescend to people. In radio, I call it the tyranny of the mute button. You as an elected official, they're not going to mute. But if you were still Alex from Mooney calling in, and the minute that they didn't like what you had to say, they mute you. And then they can respond to you for 5 minutes if they want, and look to be like they're tearing your argument apart. But of course, you can't respond. We don't even have a mute button here. We got a dump button if you say naughty words about people, but we don't got a mute button. I can't afford that yet. That's like the big radio stations. After we get the company washroom, and after we get the latte bar, then we're going to get a mute button. That's our priorities. Okay.
Love it.
All right, bud. Well, again, thanks for calling. Please don't be a stranger. And anything.
I'd love to.
Listen, with the technology we have, we can bring you and any member of the North Rhode Island media, or any member of the Wooney City Council or the administration on at the same time. We can have it out. So feel free to challenge any one of them to a debate anytime, anywhere at this. I need about 20 minutes notice. That and somebody better bring me coffee or Yacht Club soda, because they're one of our sponsors. All right, bud?
All right.
Listen.
Awesome.
Hey, listen, God bless you, lad. And God bless you for what you're doing. We'll get this, not a lot of people are listening right now. It gets late at night, but if you like, I'll slice and dice this to you, and we'll put it up there for general consumption and see how much more we can that'd be great. Piss people off. All right. It's what we do here at the Coalition. All right.
Love it.
Listen, remember that during the election, you know they're going to listen. They worked overtime to try and figure out a way to give you shit when you're on us before. So if nothing,
when I accidentally misstated the number, the size of the tax stabilization agreement that CVS gets.
Whew, did I get phone calls? But hey, listen. If nothing else, I got a feeling you give somebody. Listen, if you want, I think CVS has still got these. Pick up some Tums and drop them off at people's house tomorrow after this goes live. Okay.
I almost fell over my chair.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, listen, spread the word for me, okay?
Have a good night.
Thanks, buddy. Have a great night.
Will do.
Alex Kithis, he is a council person in the great city of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, being nice enough to join us here on the Coalition. We had a couple of calls tonight, and we appreciate people taking the time to do it. It's what we live off of. the energy level goes right up. I love to talk politics. And we're not going to mince words here. We're not going to get behind process-oriented conversations. We're going to let people emote. We're going to, as long as they're respectful of their people that are around. We're not into insult radio. We're not into outrage porn radio. And, I'm not real impressed by any of the Northern Rhode Island leadership. I don't care if you got a free police station or not. Learned a lot during the whole stadium imbroglio, as they say, in those bougie big city newspapers. We like to use big words here, too. The only thing is we have a healthy sense of humor about it, and we'll let you know when we're using big words. So, for all the politicians out there who have the big words disease, who literally feel like they went out and hit a dictionary right before they came in, it's like police perp talk. A friend of mine can do a great imitation of an officer calling in a car, an incident, and I can't, so I'll spare you that. But ultimately, it's like police talk. The politicians got to have the big bougie words. I love the word bougie, by the way. Big bougie words so that they can impress you with their erudite skills of enunciation. Listen, you want to go big word toe-to-toe? I can do it. Ask folks. And I don't have to take a deep breath for about an hour. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Network here at the CoalitionRadioNetwork.com headquarters. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. On the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. And, of course, the mothership, CoalitionRadio.us. If you can take a moment from your busy schedule, if you can subscribe to us on the YouTube, like us on the Facebook, follow us on Twitter, we would be oh so grateful. Independent media relies on social media as a way to get past the white noise. If you have a take, a say, a play, it's hard to get noticed amongst the bazillion podcasts. This week, there's all sorts of great memes going up begging people not to start podcasts this week, begging them because there are way too many. Hey, someone maybe considered me amongst the chaff as opposed to the wheat, but, we've also been doing it before it was cool. We've been on the air for 6 years, every week, grinding it out, when and whenever possible, to anyone who will listen to us. We're not above mercy calls. We're not above mercy likes. We're not above mercy shares. Sharing is caring in social media. Earlier tonight, we had Jessie Sajan. She is an astonishing individual, a Renaissance woman. We spoke for an hour with her about sexuality, about phone sex, about the sex business. Not the kind of conversation you're going to get on, if you will, big-time radio. Big. But folks like that are going to be the meat and potatoes of this show. People with a take, people like the person we just had on, Alexander Kithis. Again, he's a progressive, I'm a libertarian. We couldn't possibly get along, could we? Yet somehow we do. We don't demonize each other. We've debated each other. I've tried to focus on where we agree. Because ultimately, if we could get all the things done that we agree on, we can then hate each other later on. Does that put me out of sorts or out of context with some folks in the liberty movement? Probably. But I would like to point out where associations were made with people. That's when problems got solved. Big government plans, big money plans. That's where they got defeated. Banksters felt the wrath of both libertarians, liberty folks, and anti-corporate welfare progressives. Be a different world right now. It would absolutely be a different world. We're going to take a moment here to check the big Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. Yeah, we got some people listening. Good stuff. We appreciate people taking the time, too. Let's see a little time check here. Holy cow, it's 11:49. 11:49 at night. Have we lost track yet? Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? I don't even know that I can tell. Tell me the chime is... Oh, it's Saturday still. It's 11:49 on Saturday night. How many of you out there have lost track of time and date? How many of you guys out there stopped shaving? How many people in general have stopped shaving? The one thing about going on the air every day is you try and keep up a reasonable appearance. By the way, this is me looking reasonable. Yeah, we'll reserve judgment on that. Again, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. Twitter. A lot of people consider Twitter to be a dumpster fire. I love Twitter. Here's the reason I love Twitter. There is no single better way for an activist to reach out and touch an establishment politician than Twitter. None. If you tweet someone and you tag them in it, they or their minions are going to see it. And they are going to be mighty pissed because you called them out. I don't get involved in Twitter wars. I just make my point. And if they respond, all the better. But ultimately, I just make my point. But they know I've made it. And I know they know, and they know I know they know. And there ain't no getting around it. So a well-crafted tweet, which could take a little bit of time because you want to tag the right people, you want to make sure the right people see it. A well-crafted tweet can be quite effective. Now, take that well-crafted tweet and amplify it by lots of people retweeting it. And then you've got a movement. That needs to happen more. So, if you follow us on the Mighty Mighty Twitter at Coalition_Radio, there's also another account, POTaxpayer. That's my personal account, as opposed to the station's account. There's a few others we came up with over time, designed to talk about the stadium, to talk about something called RI for Amazon, which was Amazon's fascinating attempt to separate taxpayers from their dollars in order to get them to, incredibly enough, subsidize the construction of a home office, a new corporate headquarters too. So they literally attempt to create a raffle-like environment, a lottery environment, where they effectively, without so much as saying they were doing it, pitted state against state for the Holy Grail. And then in New York, it was a progressive of all people who pointed out, wait a minute, this is wrong. Why is a state subsidized? Well, it'll create more jobs. If you have to pay money to create jobs, it's not economic development. It's welfare, corporate welfare. So the very same people who will argue to death against transfer payments, who will argue to death against immigrants because they take all this money, they take our money, they're stealing from us. They're helping develop the next wave of economic activity. But don't tell anyone that, because that'll hurt your narrative and that'll hurt your agenda. Can't have that. If you're a local radio host and all you can do is beat the snot out of immigrants, pathetic. Immigration has been proven time and time again to be an economic boom to the host country. It infuses all sorts of economic activity, as well as economic capital, as well as innovation, and commit crimes at a lower rate than the host population. Oops. But if your agenda and the way that you're going to, because there are so many media outlets, there are so many government types who use or feel the need to create boogeyman, demons. For a generation, if you were doing a spy movie or a movie with the bad guys were typically Eastern European. The Ruskies. Or as the Stooges put it, in Bulgaria, you shoot pictures, we shoot you. Then, for years, it was Latin American drug dealers. Then it was immigrants from Mexico. Name the boogeyman. Who are you going to blame for your failings now? To which we say at the Coalition, balderdash. Nonsense. So again, 401-205-3738. We're going to run this to midnight, maybe a little after if someone calls in. But again, for the folks who took the time to call in, we thank you. We absolutely thank you. And we hope you'll tell your friends that there's another act in town. another perspective, another source of information. Who knows where this leads us? But right now, I'm going to take a little sip of water. It's on radio stations to get to do this off camera. Here, we've got to do it on camera. No place to run, no place to hide. And I got no commercials to play right now because we have a new physical format in order for us to chug down the hall. By the way, if you're looking for a musical earbug, and here's one of the frustrations, one of the things, few things I miss about conventional radio. On conventional radio, particularly if you were with a legitimate station like WPRO, you got to play rock and roll as your bumps. That's radio talk, so I sound like a real radio guy. That's radio talk for the things that bring you in and out of segments, song bits. You hear them all the time. You know, they're intentionally predictable. They're the same cuts every time. But, you know, the big stations have got the licensing with BMI or ASCAP or whoever to play some rock and roll. There's a song by Talking Heads called Life During Wartime. Listen to that song. You've heard it. You just don't remember it. You've heard it. No other song, I think, reproduces in its own funny yet cynical, dark way what's going on right now with the United States. So listen to that and you will have an earbug. I will plant it firmly, that song in your head for you. But we were using Rage Against the Machine, using a punk group called Anti-Flag, Talking Heads, Public Enemy. That's what I would miss, because coming out of a bump, you do this for a few hours, it gets tiring. You'd be surprised. Particularly if you're talking alone for about an hour and a half of the 3 hours. So you play along, you play some music, you get pumped up. Usually the music is picked so that the lyrics have a discernible impact or a discernible connection between what you're doing on the show. So in the case of Anti-Flag, it was a song, you can kill the protester, but you can't kill the protest. Great hook, screaming guitars. It would be funny because if I had somebody in studio, the first time they heard it, their eyes were kind of like wide. They weren't used to hearing punk rock on WPRO. The second time they heard it coming back into the segment, they were doing air guitar or they were playing drums. That's how infectious music can be. And politically, music is the best. Spotify has a political punk channel. Even if you're not a fan of punk rock and roll, and I'm a fan of punk rock and roll, listen to that channel. There's some great hooks, great tunes in there. Well worth the investment. So tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, maybe earlier, maybe even during the middle of the day, what we're trying to do here is build a schedule. We're going to have guests on as they're available. And we'll try and, if you will, have talk radio segments after that where folks can call in. On top of that, folks, if you hear this and you have a business that's still managed to be open, let us know about it. We'd love to publicize it, no cost. We'd just love to put it out there. So the people who listen to this station can understand and maybe help support your business. If you've got a video or something else you'd like to share, we'd love to play it. So where are we in the big scheme of things here? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Right now it is 11:59. 11:59. It's about to be Sunday. I've lost track of how many days this has been going on. We've been frantically busy trying to get this up and running. Frantically busy. So I think we're going to take our leave. So for the last time today, and again, I want to thank Jesse Sage for calling in, appearing on the show. I want to take a moment to thank our callers tonight. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Network here at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at coalition_radio, and of course the mothership at coalitionradio.us. We'll be back on the air tomorrow. We'll try and get a place to put up a schedule. We appreciate if you took the time today to listen. We realize you have a lot of choices even during these crazy days. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful night.
stay. I got 3 passports, couple of visas, don't even know my real name. Out on the hillside, trucks are loading, everything's ready to roll. Sleep in the daytime, work in the nighttime. I get home. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around. This ain't no nightclub, a teenage TV. I ain't got time for that now. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around. No time for dancing, or lovey-dovey. I ain't got time for that now. Heard about Houston, heard about Detroit, heard about Pittsburgh, PA. You ought to know not to stand by the window, somebody see you up there. I got some groceries, some peanut butter to last a couple of days. But I ain't got no speakers, ain't got no headphones, ain't got no records to play. Why stay in college? Why go to night school? Don't have no different this time. Can't write a letter, can't send no postcard. I ain't write nothing at all. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around. I'm gonna hold you, I'm gonna kiss you, but I ain't got time for that now. Trouble in transit, got through the roadblock. We blended in with the crowd. We got computers, we're tapping phone lines. You know that ain't allowed. We dress like students, we dress like housewives, or in a suit and a tie. Changed my hairstyle so many times now. Don't wanna look like. You make me shiver, I feel so tender. We make a pretty good team. Don't get exhausted, I'll do some driving. You wanna get you some sleep. Turn on my notebooks, oh my God, notebooks. They won't help me survive. My chest is aching and it burns like a furnace. The burning keeps me alive. here. You ought to know not to stand by the window. Somebody see you up there. I got some groceries, some peanut butter to last a couple of days. But I ain't got no speakers, ain't got no headphones, ain't got no records to play. Why stay in college? Why go to night school? No longer different this time. Can't write a letter, can't send a little postcard. I ain't write nothing at all. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around. I'll never hold you, I'll never kiss you, but I ain't got time for that now. Trouble in transit, got through the roadblock. We blended in with the crowd. We got computers, we're tapping phone lines. Know that ain't allowed. We dress like students, we dress like housewives, or in a suit and a tie. Changed my hairstyle so many times now. What I look like? You make me shiver, I feel so tender. We make a pretty good team. Notebooks, they won't help me survive. My chest is aching and it burns like a furnace. The burning keeps me alive. Who took the money? Who took the money away? It's always showtime here at the edge of the stage. And I wake up and wonder, what was the place? What was the name? We want to wait, but here we go again. Takes over slowly, but doesn't last very long. And no need to worry, everything's under control. Hold you tight, but don't hurt feelings. What do you know? Take you away. We're being taken for a ride again. I got a girlfriend that's better than that. She has the smoke in her eyes. She's moving up, going right through my heart. She's gonna give me surprise. Better than this, no man is right. I think you can if you like. I got a girlfriend with bows in her hair, and nothing is better than that. Is it? Down in the basement, we hear the sound of machines. And I'm driving in circles, come to my senses sometime. What started over? Nothing was lost, everything's free. I don't care how impossible it seems. Somebody calls you, but you cannot hear. Get closer to me for a way. Only one look, and that's all that it takes. Maybe that's all that we need. All that it takes. All that it takes. All that it takes. All that it takes. I got a girlfriend that's better than that. She knows whatever she likes. There she goes. I got a girlfriend that's better than that. Oh, everyone's getting involved. As we get older and start making sense, you won't find it long. Stop making sense. Stop making sense. Stop making sense. Making sense. I got a girlfriend that's better than that. Nothing is better than this. Oh, is it? Bernie Worrell.
Take me to the river. Drop
Jerry
me in the
Harrison.
water. Take me to the river.
Edna Holt.
Drop me in the water. Take me to the
Lynn Mabry.
river. Drop me in the water.
Chris Frantz.
Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river.
Steve Scales.
Drop me in the water. Take me
Alex
to the
Weir.
river. Drop me in the water.
Tina Weymouth.
Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. You gotta die, gotta die, gotta die for your government, die for your country, that shit. You gotta die, gotta die, gotta die for your government, die for your country, that shit. Let the gun for that, die in a so-called death. And the government says we don't know the source of its sickness, but don't believe what they say, because the government is lying. They've done it before, and don't you know they'll do it again. A secret test, government bill virus, government test group, go but Americans. You gotta die, gotta die, gotta die for your government, die for your country, that shit. You gotta die, gotta die, gotta die for your government, die for your country, that shit. First or veteran slaughtered by General Eisenhower. You give them your life, they give you a stab in the back. Radiation, Agent Orange, tested on U.S. souls, guinea pigs for Western corporations. I never have, I never will pledge allegiance to the flag you're gonna use. You're not gonna die, gonna die, gonna die for the government, die for the country, that shit. You're gonna die, gonna die, gonna die for the country, that shit. You're gonna die, gonna die, gonna die for the government, die for the country, that shit. I don't need you to tell me what to do, and I don't need you to tell me what to pay. Fuck you! I don't need you to tell me what to say. You can't spoon my eyes out, but I can still see through you. Slash my ears from my head, but you can't shut up the sounds of the truth. I'm gonna be dead at the wrist, so I can't raise my fist. You can't kill the protesters. You can't kill the protest. You can't murder the rebel. Murder. You can't murder the rebellion. Some of my feet at the ankles, but I wasn't gonna
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. We just finished up. Back on the air tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Ain't got nothing else to do all day.
I know that's right.
Have a great night. Hello. Hello.